Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. And I have a very special guest, Jarrett Spence. And I got to tell you how this all came about because Jarrett is a freelance multimedia journalist. And of course, I am a journalist. And he's also an NBA freelance journalist. And I was so excited about that because
Mhm.
NBA. I
Mhm.
don't know if I ever mentioned. I had a shot at the Chicago Bulls. Did I mention it to you when we were kind of chatting?
Yes,
A
you told me
long
about
time
it.
ago. Not that
Mhm.
I know. I was in Chicago and playing ball, and people say, "Hey, you ought to try for the Chicago Bulls,"
Mhm.
and that almost came. And that's way before Jordan.
Maybe you was Jordan before Jordan.
Yeah, way before Jordan. So, but anyway, so I'm with Jarrett Spence, and I gotta say how this all came about from the wonderful world of LinkedIn and
Mhm.
Jared being another podcaster and through the synchronicities of the universe,
Mhm.
Jared and I got connected and we chatted and zoomed and I'm just so thrilled to share this because of the commonality. So, Jared, I'm done.
Okay.
Take it
Mhm.
away, do a little background, and then we'll jump into the interview.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me first off. Happy to be here. So, my name is Jarrett Spence. I'm a multimedia journalist by the way of Lehman College. And basically, I'm from New York. Always had a deep passion for basketball, for the NBA. I'm from I want to say the Patrick Ewing era of the Knicks. So I've kind of, been through a lot of heartbreak with the Knicks since then. But my passion for basketball never wavered. And I just enjoy watching the game and just talking about it on podcasts, writing about it. And as far as today goes, I'm happy about both New York teams with their success right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a couple little questions when we're done with the bulk of this interview. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to ask you. I'm pretty excited. I go back because I'm older.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to the days of Walt Frazier and
Mm-hmm.
Willis Reed and some of those miraculous teams. We'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about all that. So, Jared, what motivated? I always love to ask this. What motivated you to become a journalist, and how did your journey get started?
Okay, so basically, when I first got to college, basically from high school, like I was always talking about sports on the internet, talking to people about it, debating them, and I never really thought about it, making it of a career of it. But then when I got to college, I didn't really know what to do. So I'm watching Sports Center one day, and I'm watching First Take with Stephen A. and Skip Bayless was there at the time. So I'm watching them, and I'm like, man, I really want to do this. I really want to be on TV, talking, debating basketball because I do it right now. So why not do it for my profession? So I looked up how to get on Sports Center, found out about journalism, how to become a journalist. So I was like, okay, so I'm gonna go to school for this. So I was going to Borough of Manhattan Community College at the time,
Mhm.
but they didn't offer journalism as a major, but they did offer it as a class. So I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna take the class. When I finish with this school, transfer to another school, and I'm gonna get my degree in journalism. So the first class I took of journalism was with a teacher. She basically taught the basics of it, the ethics, everything, and me and her immediately connected because I was the only journalist in the class who actually wanted to pursue this. Everybody else took it as just an
Right.
elective to
Hmm.
fulfilling requirements. So took that, graduated from BMCC, transferred to Lehman College, and then from there I decided, like, all right, let me make this a full time thing, and just from there I just catapulted into the journalism field. And basically, I'm learning the ins and outs of journalism, how to write a headline, how to write a story, how to research a story, how to basically, kind of find my sources and but not reveal them at the same time. and also trying to build a website, starting a podcast. And from there, I just kind of started writing my own articles, my own podcasts.
Mhm.
And my passion just kept going more and more because it gave me something to actually express how I feel from the sport, like some an outlet, as opposed to just be like, just talking randomly to people, and I can actually put it out there for everybody to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I want to remind our viewers that all your contact information, your podcast, all that stuff is going to flash on the bottom of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is, I got to say this right, what is your Jiggy with the podcast about?
Yes.
That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you start it, and talk about the whole process of getting guests. So talk about this. What a great name.
Thank you.
So unique.
Mm-hmm. So basically, how that started was me and my friend who makes music. He wanted me to come with him to a studio session one day, record him, interview him, and basically from there, we kind of just connected, and just he was like, "You need to interview me, write some questions down, interview me so we can put it on YouTube." I'm like, "All right, cool, no problem." So we finally did it, and then I decided, man, maybe I can make this into like a consistent thing where I'm interviewing a whole bunch of different creatives, entrepreneurs, and just kind of giving them a platform where they can show their work, express the ins and outs of being an entrepreneur, and what's the struggles behind it, what
Great
what
idea.
it takes to strive in this field. So from there, I was at the time, this is before COVID, I was booking places through Peerspace, and I would have the guests meet me there. I'll have the microphone set up, the
Mhm.
computer, camera set up, and I would just sit there and interview them and talk to them about their profession. But then, as of now, because of the quarantine and everything, so I'm strictly doing it through Zoom right now until it's safe to actually do it. And basically, how like the process of finding these entrepreneurs is kind of going through the internet, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and just kind of connecting with them. Like, hey, I check out their work,
Mhm.
and then I'll write them a message like, hey, I really like what you're doing. Would you love to be on my podcast where I can sit down and talk to you? You can basically brag about your work. Just go all out, show everything whatever you want to show. Just feel free. This is the platform to do it. And some people respond, some people don't. And that's the risk you take. And from there, it just took off. And then it's on Spotify right now. It's on YouTube.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
this podcast, is wonderful.
I appreciate it.
It is absolutely wonderful, giving entrepreneurs a platform.
Mm-hmm.
In some small way, I'm not doing that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's I'm not, I don't interview Beyonce uh, or George Clooney. Uh,
Yeah.
what's more important to me is,
Mm-hmm.
is the people who do the living and dying in America.
Mm-hmm.
The real stuff, and that's what you're doing, and I think that is so
Yes.
wonderful
Mm-hmm.
to grow that. So I tip my hat to you. I don't.
Appreciate it.
I think it's great, Jared. Another aspect to you is your photography. How did you get into photography?
Well, when I was really young, like I was probably like 5 years old, my mother gave me a camera. And from there, I just been taking pictures. And I took pictures at my parents' weddings. And, I always seemed like I always had a camera in my hand. If it was around me, I was taking pictures. And then as I've gotten older, when I went to college, I kind of got back into photography because I had to do a photojournalism assignment. And from there, I was like, you know what, I'm about to buy me a camera and just go from there, just see where this takes me. So like I'm kind of like, I'm on like a jack of all trades, doing multiple things, and just it was fun. So it became another passion for me.
Great, great. Uh, I'm excited to ask you this next
Yes.
question. So what is it? What is it like being a freelance NBA journalist?
hmm
And then what is the Stop and Pop
Okay,
podcast about?
sure. So being a freelance NBA journalist, it's fun. It has its ups and downs because like it's a lot of how can I put it? It's a lot of like jobs that you're looking for, and you might not get it, you might, but it's the risk of being a freelance. And for the Stop and Pop is basically a podcast where I get to express my feelings towards basketball, where I talk about different things like news, headlines, trades, things like that. And I've been doing it for a while, off and on. But, it's nothing like I'm not really trying to like build on. It's kind of like just like a media diary for me per se, where I just kind of just sit down and just rant about whatever that comes to my mind basketball wise.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go off topic.
Go ahead.
Just one quick off topic. It's a fun kind of question
Mm-hmm.
that I like to ask. I'm going to unpack it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it is fun. Excluding family and friends,
Yes.
name somebody living or dead that you'd like to spend a day with.
Living or dead, I like to spend the day with. Well, I gotta say Kobe, and
Yeah.
rest in peace to him. This is the anniversary of his death. Just to pick his mind of like basketball, and not even only basketball, it's like his attention to detail to certain things. Is like I read his book, Mamba Mentality, and it just shows that he's very precise with everything he does. It's like he understands the details of it, the what you need to do to get there, the hard work is put in for it. And like that's one person like I really
That's a great answer.
would have loved to.
What a great answer. And you know what? I would do that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the next the next part to you is you do work with FanSided.
Yes.
Can you kind of explain what that is and the work? I mean, that's just part of your broad spectrum as a journalist. So, what is FanSided and what is the work that you do there?
So I was doing that a few years ago, and it was a writing blog for the Timberwolves. It was called Dunking with the Wolves, and
Wow.
I was basically kind of just researching topics about the Minnesota Timberwolves, and asking them, "Oh, yeah, is this a good idea for me to write about? Pitching, making a pitch to them." And they was like, "Yeah, that's fine." Do my research on them, and I would just basically, find out, what information that's going to back up my opinion on whatever I was writing about. Like I wrote an article about the top 5 big men in the Timberwolves history, and I gave like background about them. I gave stats about them, and it was really good. Like I think that was probably my favorite article about them. And I did an article about Andrew Wiggins while he was there, and it was really fun. And I have to report to them virtually.
Okay, that's great. And that's kind of off. Minnesota Timberwolves are kind of far from. It's interesting. New York, LA, get much press and attention, and I mean it's always that way. I mean that's sports.
Yeah.
But to take a team that's not visible as
not in the big market, basically.
Yeah, I think that is interesting. So I've been kind of waiting on this to kind of drift in. So what a loaded question, but how do you feel about the NBA season so far? And who would you early pick to wind up in the finals? 2 teams.
My early picks right now, I would have to say the Lakers because they are obviously the favorite with LeBron and Anthony Davis. They won last year. And for the East, I'm not sure because I'm thinking maybe the Philadelphia 76ers or the Nets because I believe the Sixers have the best record in the East right now. But the Nets of course have the most potential with Harden coming there, Kyrie, Kevin Durant. And I just heard a report that they're trying to get Kevin Love and JaVale McGee.
Wow.
So
Wow.
so I'm thinking like maybe them.
So I also have to ask you this. I've always had this theory, because as I told you my age before, I'm not announcing it on air, but I go back. I go back even before the Knicks and Clyde Frazier, who I met. It was a great day for me. But I go back to the old Boston Celtics. And watch how I develop this. So I go back to the old Boston Celtics with Bill Russell and Casey Jones and Sam Jones and Bob Cousy and Bill Sharman. And I'm going back, and they won, and they just kept winning and winning and winning, and eventually LA won a couple, but Boston just dominated basketball. And what I observed then, and I don't know if it's valid now, but I'll get around to framing this. What I observed about the Celtics is they didn't necessarily. Well, Bill Russell was a superstar, but he wasn't. Wasn't Wilt Chamberlain, and he wasn't an offensive. He wasn't
more of a defensive guy.
He was one of the great defensive players who ever lived. Rebounding, block shots, but the Celtics didn't have like superstars, Elgin Baylor kind of thing, or Oscar Robertson. That's how old I am. I'm mentioning these names. So now taking that, and yet they won. Taking that, and now they're asking you this next question. On paper, and if I were a dreamer, what the Nets have done, with Kevin Durant and Kyrie and Harden, forgetting anything else, it's beyond comprehension. So my question to you, Jared, is: can this work? Can this work? On paper, they're a wow, but can it realistically work? Offensively, yes. Can these guys work together?
It's all about defense. That's really what's going to come down to, and how they share the ball. Because all three of those players, they're heavy isolation players, need the ball in their hands. But I would say this: Kevin Durant was able to go to Golden State and seem like a seamless fit in that offense. But granted, Steph and Klay Thompson, they don't need the ball much in their hands to be effective because they're great shooters and they move without the ball a lot. So for them to actually work, Harden, Kyrie, and KD, they might have to move without the ball a little more and not base their game so heavy on dribble, and just kind of pass the ball around and kind of get everybody else involved, because at the end of the day, it's a team sport. And the knock on Kyrie and Harden has always been they're heavy ISO players. They don't pass the ball much, even though Harden led the league in assists a few times, but they still consider him a ball dominant player. So I think that's what it's really going to come down to.
And didn't Harden have a couple of triple
doubles, 60-point triple doubles?
Yeah. So potentially, it's like a wow what they can do, and it would be so nice to have that here. It's been a long
time,
a long time, and they should have it. I was marvel at the sport of basketball. I marvel at it because I'm looking at college right now. My Rutgers stuff.
Yep.
But I marvel. Well, because the game of football, in order to really be successful, you kind of need 40 or 50 guys who are really good.
Yeah.
Basketball, 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 or 2, boom. And I also marvel. I'd like your thoughts about this. There's been so many great, amazing, including Steph Curry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that comes to mind. I remember George Gervin.
Yep. Mm-hmm. The Iceman.
Yep. I mean, there's a million guys who came out of college invisible, including Walt Frazier, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Walt Frazier played for Southern Illinois. I've never even heard of them.
Yep.
So my question, it's kind of like a question. I find it so interesting in the history of the NBA that so many great players have come into the NBA who were invisible in college.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's true.
Yep.
That's definitely true.
Yep. Yeah. It just it's like, wow. And where were they?
I think it's because like the fact that in college is more team oriented and it's really packed in with like zone defenses,
right,
and different schemes and everything. Plus, the court is smaller, the lane and everything. And for the NBA, everybody is kind of not really on the same level talent wise, but it's definitely a step above college. So you have to really guard these players, and you can't just like zone up and just or play double team one player. You have to guard everybody in the NBA. So for players that come into the league who's coming from college, they have free reign basically, where it's like, okay, show me what you can do. You have all this space, you have all this opportunity. What can you do with it? And I think that's what it really boils down to. Because but at the same time, it's a lot of players who've been really successful in college and go to the NBA and don't be as successful. Like Jimmy Fredette, for example. Like I thought Jimmy Fredette was gonna come in and be great, averaging 30 in college, but then he gets to the NBA, he can't stick with the team.
Wow, it's so interesting. So you can't. There's no formula. You can't figure it out.
Exactly.
It's interesting. It's really, really interesting. It's funny. A funny thing happened. I think last night. There's I guess it's a tradition in the NBA after some games that players exchange jerseys.
Oh yeah, I seen that.
You saw that?
Yeah.
So the security came. Kyrie Irving was going to give. Actually, I forgot who it was.
Bam Adebayo.
Yeah,
he's from Newark too.
Yeah,
he's from Newark.
Newark. And they were about to exchange jersey, and security came, and they wouldn't allow him.
Yep. COVID reasons.
Funny. So kind of winding down. I find I could probably pick your brains on NBA stuff.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, and I've enjoyed this, and like I said, so much of my growing up, my youth was basketball, because I was a basketball player, and it's such a part of me in the NBA.
Yeah.
So that's why I was so thrilled to do this. So kind of winding down, like concluding, what is your long-term goals as far as being a journalist? How do you see yourself in the future, this whole journalism gig?
So currently I'm trying to find a full-time gig as a journalist, full-time job as a writer or a podcaster, something for a company where I can help them grow, while they can also help me grow as a journalist. And basically, sending around basketball, because that's my passion. That's what I'm really into. And funny story I meant to tell you. A few years ago, I was in Miami celebrating my graduation, and also it was my friend's birthday. So it was a group of friends of us went down to Miami, and I met Jemele Hill down there.
Wow.
So I was talking to her, and she was telling me about, like basically, just Gotta keep doing the work. Gotta build yourself up. You know, start low, and then you can work. Because I told her my goal was to work on ESPN. And she's like, don't only focus on being on ESPN. Like, you can focus on other places, other things. She's like, I didn't start ESPN. Stephen A didn't start ESPN. You can start other companies and you can work your way up. And then I really took that advice to heart, and I'm like, she's right. Like, you know, there's other companies out here who,
Sure.
you know, who's like hiring and taking journalists. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go from there. But that's my ultimate goal, basically, to be a journalist in a company, helping them grow, and at the same time helping myself grow and helping probably my brand grow, and just basically kind of like becoming my own man, becoming my own journalist.
And you're certainly on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got this theory. It's an old theory, and the more things you throw up on the wall, which you're doing
Mm-hmm.
and exposing and using media, because your world. I say this to my son all the time. The world is changing so dramatically in content.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It really is.
so much that the opportunities, Jared, are sometimes we can't even imagine what it's going to be like. But you're in a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful position. You know so much about the NBA. It's such a part of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're doing all the right things. And I'm so thrilled I met you.
Absolutely, I met you
And,
too. Thank you.
and you and me to be continued.
Mm-hmm.
And actually we can collaborate and do other kind of things. I also,
Definitely.
parenthetically, I also really got into women's basketball.
I'm starting to get into a lot more too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I got into women's basketball, uh, interestingly, and I never expected it because it was never, on my radar. But
Mm-hmm.
my son's high school team, um, going back 2002, it's a long time ago. But
Mm-hmm.
suburban New Jersey here,
Mm-hmm.
they put together. They had 5 girls who were so good. They've been playing AAU together for years since they were like
Oh wow.
seventh, eighth grade. So when they
Mm-hmm.
all emerged in high school, and a couple of the girls who did not live in town suddenly moved.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
By the way, suddenly moved into town. So
Yeah.
that my son's little suburban high school, by their sophomore year, they had beaten the #1 high school team in the country, Christ the King.
Wow.
This is a wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered this
Mm-hmm.
then, and I went to every game. I went to every game
Mm-hmm.
for 3 years to watch these girls play. They were off the charts,
Yeah.
and they
Christ the King is a big
probably
deal too.
they beaten Christ the King, which was #1 in the country. Put them,
Mm-hmm.
they were like 7th, 8th in the country. And it's I would love to write an essay that they were one girl away from immortality.
Wow.
Meaning, if they would have had like a 6'3"
Mm-hmm.
girl uh, to rebound, and if they would have had maybe a 6th player
Mm-hmm.
and a tall, they probably would have gone on to be immortal.
Wow. Yeah.
And actually, at the time, they were so good.
Mm-hmm.
I was so taken back with how good they were. I mean, I actually got a hold of an assistant coach from Rutgers,
Okay.
Vivian Stringer, one of the greatest coaches of all time, and brought
Mm-hmm.
her to see these girls play.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time ago. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, I, I tell you that because it's part of the basketball story, and there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
girls, women in the WNBA, came out of Rutgers, some pretty great ball players.
Mm-hmm.
And so I follow.
Mm-hmm.
I follow. I kind of think sometimes it's kind of pure because
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of dunking and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
But
it's
they're very skilled.
Yeah,
but they are starting to dunk though.
I know.
They are starting to dunk. They're
I
becoming
know.
very athletic.
I know. Hey, it is what it is,
Yeah.
So, we could, and we will continue this dialogue, but I want to kind of wind down, and I want to thank you so much for your time and your expertise, and this has been so great. I'm very grateful.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So to be continued, Jared. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will talk.